How is Sri Lanka dealing with the geopolitical fix that we are in right now as far as India and China is concerned? And all of this is taking place while Sri Lanka is under a state of emergency, which has also been challenged in the Supreme Court. Good evening, this is Primetime News on TV1. We've got the details of these stories and more coming up tonight. But first, a look at your top stories.
Aragalaya People's Protest Camp in Galface dismantled. Father Jivanta Piris released on bail. Pakistan warship in Colombo. Chinese research vessel on course to Sri Lanka. India rejects claims of adding pressure on Sri Lanka regarding Yuan Wang 5. Petitions filed challenging the state of emergency. Was the state of emergency imposed to save the economy?
In the stories in detail now. Police today removed all structures and tents at the Galface protest site. The structures were removed after the people were given time to vacate the protest site.
The police made an announcement at the Galface protest site this afternoon, asking the people to vacate the area. The police and the special task force intervened to remove the tents, placards and all structures at the protest site. If you are working according to the law, all actions must be legal. We expect the police to respectfully act according to the law. The police force has been appointed to protect the people, not to chase them away. The people have been protesting for 4 months. We don't know if the public was inconvenienced. Only a few people were here. Sri Lankan land doesn't belong only to the politicians in the country. Who are they trying to suppress? We regret this. If this is the situation in the country, if this is the democracy in the country, we are forced to question the security of the people in the country as well. Three people who were arrested by the Fort Police for unruly behavior at the Galface protest site this afternoon were released on bail after being produced before the Fort Magistrate Court. People launched the peaceful struggle at Galface on the 9th of April, demanding the resignation of Gotabaya Rajapaksa and his government. The protesters vacated the protest site 126 days since the protest was launched.
Reverend Father Jivanta Piris, who surrendered to the Fort Magistrate's Court, who surrendered before the Fort Magistrate Thilina Gamage today, was released on bail.
Reverend Father Jivanta Piris, who was a leading figure in the Aragalaya, was charged with engaging in an unlawful protest by violating a court order. The magistrate rejected a request made by the Colombo Central Crimes Investigation Division to remand Reverend Father Jivanta Piris. He was released on 2 personal sureties of 500,000 rupees. Reverend Father Jivanta Piris was barred from travelling overseas by the court and was also ordered to report to the Colombo Central Crimes Investigation Division tomorrow morning to provide a statement.
The police was unable to present any evidence with regard to charges made against him, such as damaging public property, being disruptive and for unruly behavior. They're trying to find some fault when there is actually none. What happened today was that it was revealed through the police statements that there is a conspiracy to arrest the leaders of the people's struggle. We would like to tell those involved in the struggle, don't be afraid.
We will not stop this peaceful protest. We will be organizing people to get involved in the politics with the People's Council, and we will continue this consistent protest movement as a non-violent peaceful protest.
Aragale activist Danish Ali was returned to remand custody when he was produced in court today.
Fort Magistrate Tilina Gamage on Friday ordered to remand Aragale activist Danish Ali and 3 others until the 26th of August. The suspects were recently arrested for unlawfully entering the president's house and causing damage to its property. Fort Police requested the court to remand the suspects as the investigations into the incident is ongoing. The magistrate thereby ordered for the suspects to be remanded until the 26th of August.
Many factions opposed the imposition of a state of emergency in the country, and subsequently petitions were filed with the Supreme Court challenging the said state of emergency. Today, these petitions were granted leave to proceed.
The Sri Lankan Supreme Court has granted to proceed with the 3 fundamental rights petitions that were filed seeking a ruling that the imposition of the state of emergency under the Public Security Ordinance violates the fundamental rights of the people. The FRs were filed by 3 parties including Attorney-at-Law Namini Pandit and Rasiru Egodage. The Supreme Court said that no interim order preventing the implementation of the emergency regulations will be issued at this time. The Attorney General was ordered by the Supreme Court to report back in 2 weeks with regard to the amendments that need to be made on the consent of the emergency regulations. The petition will be taken up from the 28th of October.
Scottish tourist Kaylee Fraser has gone to court against the decision to deport her from Sri Lanka.
Scottish tourist Kaylee Fraser filed a writ application with the Court of Appeal today seeking an order to invalidate the decision taken by the Department of Immigration and Immigration to deport her from Sri Lanka. The Controller General of the Department of Immigration and Immigration and the Attorney General have been named as respondents in the application. This writ application was submitted by Attorney-at-Law Nagananda Kodituaku. The petitioner said she was involved in the protests at Golface in Colombo, and thereafter the Department of Immigration and Immigration had taken an arbitrary decision to terminate her visa. She is seeking for the Court of Appeal to rule that the decision by the Department of Immigration and Immigration is unjust.
The purpose of this application is to protect the rights and freedom of the citizens. She has seen what is happening in this country, particularly what happened on the 9th, and she published certain things in her social media pages, which is her right. The government has absolutely failed. That is why people start this Aragalaya. Now they are trying to suppress it. But today this matter will be taken up in the Scottish Parliament.
Minister of Public Security Tiran Alas met with US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung in Colombo recently.
The Ministry of Public Security said that Minister Tiran Alas had met with the US Ambassador Julie Chung on Wednesday to discuss bilateral relations. The ambassador has said that it is in the hope of the United States of America to see Sri Lanka become a developed country. The ambassador also emphasized the importance of protecting human rights and that the US would provide assistance to Sri Lanka to obtain assistance from the International Monetary Fund. An exchange of views on the public protest also took place at the meeting, and the ambassador expressed appreciation about zero violence in the country during the August 9th protests.
India has rejected insinuations about statements claiming that the country added pressure on Sri Lanka with regard to the visit of the Chinese vessel Yuan Wang 5.
I've seen general comments about it. That India has been, India should be doing this, or Sri Lanka has been pressured. Let me categorically say we reject the insinuations in such statements about India. Sri Lanka is a sovereign country and makes its own independent decisions. Insofar as India-Sri Lanka relations are concerned, you are aware, we've been talking about it, the centrality of Sri Lanka in our neighborhood first policy. This year itself, India has extended an unprecedented support of US $3.8 billion for ameliorating the serious economic situation facing the people of Sri Lanka. India is also fully supportive of Sri Lanka's democracy, stability and economic recovery. And regard to our security concerns, there were some comments that said, look, this is a sovereign right of each country. We will make the best judgment in our own interest. This naturally takes into account the prevailing situation in the region, especially in our border areas. And insofar as in the context of India and China that you had raised, we have consistently maintained the necessity of mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interests as the basis of development of ties.
Yuan Wang 5, a ballistic missile and satellite tracking ship in China's research vessel fleet, continues to remain in the Indian Ocean.
The Yuan Wang 5, a ballistic missile and satellite tracking ship in China's research vessel fleet that was moving away from Sri Lanka on Thursday, is back on its original course towards the southern port of Hambantota. However, the ship is facing the Bay of Bengal from the eastern ocean region of Sri Lanka. The Yuan Wang 5 was located some 620 nautical miles away from the Hambantota port in the Sea of Sri Lanka. On Wednesday, the Yuan Wang 5 changed its course slightly and also dropped its speed. An observation of the course of the Yuan Wang 5 revealed that it was passing over the 90 East Ridge, a mid-ocean ridge on the Indian Ocean floor named for its near-parallel strike along the 90th meridian at the center of the Eastern Hemisphere. This evening, the Yuan Wang 5 was traveling at a speed of 6 knots. In 2021, a Chinese government survey ship, the Xiang Yang Hong 3, was operating in the same region in the Indian Ocean and carrying out a search pattern west of Sumatra. The Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry already requested China to defer the arrival of the Yuan Wang 5, a ballistic missile and satellite tracking ship in China's research vessel fleet. However, there is no announcement on whether or not this vessel will be allowed to enter the Hambantota port. The harbour master for the Hambantota port said that the Yuan Wang 5 did not reach the port yesterday. He said no vessel can enter the Hambantota port without his permission.
Meanwhile, a Pakistan warship on its maiden voyage to Karachi arrived at the port of Colombo on a formal visit this morning. The ship is expected to be at the Colombo port until the 15th of August.
Pakistan Navy ship PNS Taimur arrived at the port of Colombo on a formal visit this morning. The visiting ship was welcomed by the Sri Lanka Navy in compliance with naval traditions. The 134-meter long ship is commanded by Captain M. Yasir Tahir and it is manned by 169 as the ship's complement. The ship is expected to remain in the island until the 15th of August and the crew of the ship will take part in several programs organized by the Sri Lanka Navy to promote cooperation and goodwill between the two navies. Further, PNS Taimur is expected to conduct a naval exercise with the Sri Lanka Navy in the Western Seas on its departure on the 15th of August. The Pakistan warship is on its maiden voyage to Pakistan while exercising en route with Cambodian and Malaysian navies. The ship is expected to be at the Colombo port until the 15th of August. Chinese-built Pakistani guided missile frigate PNS Taimur made a port call at Colombo while on its way to join the Pakistan Navy in Karachi, and India too had focused its attention on this vessel's arrival. While Sri Lanka permitted the Pakistani guided missile frigate to make a port call at Colombo, it is understood that the ship was denied permission to make a port call at the Chattogram port by the Sheikh Hasina government from the 7th to the 10th of August after making a port call at the Lumpur port in Malaysia. PNS Tughill, an identical warship belonging to the Pakistan Navy, arrived in Sri Lanka on an official visit on the 13th of December 2021 and conducted a successful naval exercise with the SLNS Sidurala off the western coast on the 16th of December 2021. Naval exercises of this nature with regional navies will enable each partner to overcome common maritime challenges in the future through enhanced cooperation.
Earlier this year, Sri Lanka was in talks with India to acquire Dornier aircrafts for the Sri Lanka military. And the first delivery of this aircraft will be made to the island nation on Monday.
The first ever Dornier reconnaissance aircraft from India to enhance the maritime surveillance capabilities of Sri Lanka will be inducted to Sri Lanka Air Force Fleet on 15th August 2022 in a ceremonial procession. According to our correspondent, the rehearsal for this event was held today. The Indian Naval Dornier Indo 228 is a short takeoff and landing, multi-role light transport aircraft with a turboprop twin engine produced since 1981. The aircraft will be flown and maintained by 15 SLAF crew who were specifically trained in India for a period of 4 months, consisting with pilots, observers, engineering officers and technicians, along with supervision by GOI technical team attached to SLAF comprising of engineering officers and technicians. The program to include biometric data of Sri Lankans into a digital identity card has also begun. Views were expressed regarding the program at a media briefing convened by the Department of Registration of Persons. We only obtain biographical data for the identity card. We need to include biometric data as well. These include fingerprints or even information regarding their blood or even features of their face. These are all biometric data. In the future, we will include this biometric data into the biographical data and issue a national identity card. This program is being conducted under Indian aid and we're in the process of selecting a supplier. All of us will have to be re-registered.
India expects bilateral trade worth $8 to $9 billion with Sri Lanka and Russia in the next 2 months, after it allowed international trade in rupees. The Reserve Bank of India last month allowed importers and exporters to pay in the partially convertible Indian rupee, a move widely seen as making trade with Russia and South Asian neighbors easier instead of relying on dollars.
India's Trade Secretary BVR Subramaniam said this week that the Indian rupee-dominated sales will be a big advantage and sees $8 to $9 billion of trade with Russia and Sri Lanka within the next 2 months. He did not give a breakdown in trade by country. India's imports from Russia, mainly crude oil, jumped nearly 5 times to more than $15 billion between the end of July and the 24th of February when Russia invaded Ukraine compared to the previous year. But exports fell to $852.22 million from $1.34 billion in the same period due to the lack of a payment settlement mechanism which sanctioned hit Russia. Latest trade figures between India and Sri Lanka, which is in economic crisis, were not immediately available. India reported a record trade deficit of $31.02 billion for July, 3 times higher than in the same period last month due to a fall in exports and high imports. This was according to the latest preliminary trade data. Subramaniam expects India merchandise exports to jump to about $500 billion in the current fiscal year that started on April 1st from about $420 billion in the year-ago period.
We now cross over to a short commercial break. We'll be back with more news on the other side.
Earn a highest interest rate of 23% for 8 months fixed deposits. LB Yasa Isuru.
නිවෙසපුරා ගලන මේ සතුට සුරක්ෂිත කරන්නේ Eslon Insight. Eslon ජීවයයි ජලය ජීවිතේ.
Welcome back to the news. What is the next course of action to revive the Sri Lankan economy? Opinions regarding this matter were expressed in Parliament today.
I very earnestly request this. The President emphasized what needs to be done during his speech. But there is no course of action. This is the way forward. We can establish an all-party government. If this way forward is accepted, we can form a new government. We can create a system of governance. The opposition is presenting a plan the government does not have. Let us know if you oppose this. Honorable Speaker, please note that the opposition is providing a way forward. Newspapers state that parliamentarians are are rushing to get cabinet postings. 30 cabinet postings and 40 state minister postings are up for grabs. Honourable Speaker, can we really move forward like that? Some say that they can switch sides, join the government and fix this country, but that is not true. There are no supermen in this world or in this country. We couldn't do this between 2015 and 2019. Why couldn't we do it? The MPs in the government didn't allow it. They didn't allow this country to be connected to the rest of the world. We were like frogs in a pond and we ended up being bankrupt. The president invited me to join the government. Some ministers called me yesterday as well, but that is not my stance. Honourable Speaker, sometimes I feel I'm better off if I just resign, but I'm not going to do that. We don't want cabinet postings. Just allow us to provide solutions to this crisis. Honourable Speaker, we fully support an all-party government. People say that the 6.9 million people's support is no longer there. Yes, we admit that. 68 votes of the Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna were obtained for that election. The Sri Lanka Podujana Perumuna is supporting an all-party government when we have a 145-seat majority in parliament. These are false allegations regarding the Goalface Aragalaya protesters. It's about your camp. The protesters have to be suppressed to make your camp happy. That is Ranil Wickremesinghe's democracy. Ranil Wickremesinghe, sitting on his high chair in parliament, asks us why we didn't oppose him when he obtained loans. That is a strange argument. Out of the international sovereign bonds sold, 80% were sold during Ranil Wickremesinghe's regime. What else did he say? He said the Trincomalee oil tank complex was a bad idea. He issued a cabinet paper for the first time in Sri Lanka's history to overthrow a decision approved by the cabinet. That is how he obstructed the development of the Trincomalee oil tanks. Finally, he is saying our children will benefit from the results achieved by his efforts. We can clearly see the damage his current actions would cause in the future. Our country is now experiencing the consequences of their decisions in the past. These are the results of the Aragalaya. Everyone always talks about the Ranil Wickremesinghe government, the Rajapaksas, Mahinda Rajapaksa and our former president. Basil Rajapaksa left parliament. Gotabaya Rajapaksa had to leave the country. And then there is Namal Rajapaksa as well. They are living in fear. They must be waking up from their sleep in fear. Don't worry, Honourable Speaker. But remember one thing, if it swings that way, it will also swing our way. We were with the Rajapaksas then. We're with the Rajapaksas now. There is no set date, but the Rajapaksas will rise again. We saw in the recent past how ministers escape in hiding when the people were rising. But we now see the same ministers come and give strong statements in parliament. Now they're challenging the people once again. They're trying to fool the people. This is a government the people defeated. It's sad to see that same government raise their heads again. We request the people to be vigilant. Do not seek revenge from the youths in the Aragalaya. Do not arrest them. Don't imprison them just because they ate some fruit in the president's palace. Put an end to this now. You may have suppressed the Aragalaya, but the Aragalaya lives on forever. We salute the Aragalaya. The Aragalaya needs to reform. It will take some time, but don't think the Aragalaya is over.
Leader of the House, Minister Susil Premajayant, said that concessions for low-income families severely affected by the increase in electricity tariffs will be provided through the upcoming interim budget. He made this statement in response to a query by the leader of the opposition.
The increase in electricity tariffs has become an unbearable burden to the people of the country. The impact of this increase will be felt when the people receive their electricity bills. We know that the entire country is facing a crisis, but we need some sort of solution to the pressure and poverty that is facing our people. The increase in electricity tariffs has hit the lowest income earners in the country the most. The industrial sector and the tourism sector have been affected. I request for this tariff increase be re-examined and for some sort of concessions to be provided. Honourable Leader of the House, it was previously proposed to grant some allowance for low-income earners. You are aware of that. Consider that as well. We have allotted time for a debate on the 29th of this month regarding the increase in electricity tariffs. In addition to that, we are also working on including a revised budget in the agenda. We are holding discussions on providing some sort of concessions in the revised budget as well. I believe that we can provide some sort of concessions to low-income families through that.
ගත යුතු පියවර ගැන යම් පියවරක් ගන්න කටයුතු කරමින් පවතී.
The Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital, one of the key hospitals in the North Central province, is facing a severe shortage of medicine that has put the lives of patients at risk.
Patients visiting the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital are faced with a situation where the hospital is not issuing certain medicines that are required for treatment. Generally, government hospitals are visited by poor people who cannot spend money to buy medicine. Newsfirst also came across several people who cannot even afford to purchase medicine from a private pharmacy due to the shortage of medicine.
මගේ දුව දැන් සතියක් ICU එකේ ඉන්නේ. ඊයේ මට රෝහලෙන් නැති බෙහෙත් වර්ග චිට්ටයක් ලියලා දුන්නා. ඒකේ බෙහෙත් දෙකක් තිබුණා. ඒ බෙහෙත් දෙකෙන් එක බෙහෙතක මම ගිහිල්ලා ගත්තා. ඒ බෙහෙත තිබුණා. අනිත් බෙහෙත බැලුවා මේ කිසිම ෆාමසියක නැහැ.
Doctors point out that the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital does not even have essential life-saving medicine.
People's lives are now under serious threat. The safety of life has been severely threatened through this. Even I myself do not have the medication needed to maintain the necessary blood pressure in the event of a heart attack at this time.
Against this backdrop, the Anuradhapura Teaching Hospital is also facing challenges in performing surgeries.
There's a huge shortage of medicines in intensive care units. There's a big shortage of life-saving medicines. Then if the planned surgeries are performed, it becomes impossible to perform emergency surgeries. We have a problem in getting the medicines that are received in the central medicine storage in small quantities. Currently, there is no system of getting fuel for our medicine transport trucks. It is easier to give the list of drugs that are available than to give the list of drugs that are not available. That's how bad this shortage is. There's an overall shortage of medicines affecting the entire island. That has also affected our hospital.
Meanwhile, the patients who visited the Colombo National Hospital also stated that they also had to buy most of the medicine prescribed by the hospital from private pharmacies.
Ousted former Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is currently at a hotel in the heart of Bangkok, where police are advising him not to leave for security reasons.
The Bangkok Post reported that Gotabaya Rajapaksa arrived with 3 other people on a chartered flight from Singapore at Don Muang International Airport around 8 p.m. on Thursday. According to the source, the group had planned to land in Phuket, but concerns about a possible information leak resulted in the flight being redirected to Bangkok. On arrival, he was escorted by Thai police and military personnel. At the hotel, the location of which was not disclosed, plainclothes police officers from the Special Branch Bureau have been deployed to ensure safety. Officials have asked the former leader to remain within the hotel during his stay in the country.
Enjoy a highest return for your investments from LB Finance right now. Earn a highest interest rate of 23% for 8 months fixed deposits. LB Yasaisuru, an unparalleled reward for a trusted deposit.
මොකද මහත්තයා මේ නෑ මේ ගෙදර සිංක් එකේ අයි මහත්තයා ස්ලෝන් නෙවෙයිද දැම්මේ හදිස්සියට බාලා පයිප්පයක් දැම්මේ නැද්ද මුදලාලි ඊයේ පෙරේදා කඩේ රිපෙයාර් කරන්න ගෙනාපු ගම් චුට්ටක් මේ වගේ ප්‍රශ්න වලට හොඳම විසඳුම ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටක් හැබැයි ඉක්මනින් දාගන්න ස්ලෝන් පයිප්පයක්
ස්ලෝන් ගම් චුට්ටා හැම ගෙදරකම සිටිය යුතු ජලනල කාර්මිකයා දැන් ළඟම ග්‍රොසරියෙන් මිලදී ගන්න.
The number of lives lost due to the human-elephant conflict is increasing, and this includes lives of both humans and wild elephant. A tragic incident caused as a result of the human-elephant conflict was reported from Galgamur this afternoon.
The village of Siambalawa, which falls under the Galgamur Divisional Secretariat, is under the constant threat of elephant attacks. Wild elephants storm into the village farmlands, leaving a trail of destruction. 42-year-old Abe Ratna, a senior in the Siambalawa village, left for his cultivation last night in a bid to protect it from wild elephants. But sadly, he never returned home. His family was alarmed by his disappearance and decided to visit the cultivation, only to find out that their breadwinner had been mauled to death by a wild elephant.
කැඩිලා ඊට පස්සේ මෙතනට දුවගෙන ඇවිල්ලා ඊ ගොඩක් අවුස්සලා ඊට පස්සේ මේ වෙලේ බලමුම තාත්තයි දෙටලා චූටි පුතේ කියන්නේ මං කාටද චූටි පුතේ
42-year-old Abiratna, who died from the elephant attack, was the father of 4.
Today is World Elephant Day. The elephant habitat in Sri Lanka has reduced by 15% over the last 50 years.
Every year, August 12th is designated as World Elephant Day in view of the conservation of the world's wild elephants. Elephants are termed as endangered on the IUCN Red List of threatened species. The World Elephant Day is extremely important for Sri Lanka since there is an urgent need for a sustainable solution to the human-elephant conflict, which has intensified in recent years. According to the most recent elephant census, the population of elephants in Sri Lanka is around 6,000, of which only 5% is estimated to be tuskers. As per the data available, around 300 elephants die every year due to the human-elephant conflict, while over 100 human lives are also lost. Pruthaviraj Fernando, an expert on elephants in Sri Lanka, says that elephants too are facing a severe food crisis due to the authorities not taking the necessary steps to tackle the human-elephant conflict. On World Elephant Day, we emphasize on the need to protect the wild elephant population in Sri Lanka. An event was held at the Pinnavela Elephant Orphanage to mark the World Elephant Day. Elephants were offered milk, rice and fruits to mark the occasion.
News First with the people.
In a look at some business news now, the Colombo Stock Exchange recorded a remarkable growth today. At the close of trading on Friday, the all-share price index increased by 321 points and recorded an increase of 3.69%. The S&P SL20 index rose by 4.8% to 143. Today's market turnover is 6.33 billion rupees. A couple from the United Kingdom who tied the knot in Sri Lanka visited the Gammadda Secretariat today to support Sri Lankan families in whatever way they can.
Many people spend a lot of time and money planning their perfect wedding. And newlyweds Svenya Vijay Gunawardana and Joss Yerbury, who tied the knot in Colombo earlier this month, decided to donate the funds they received from their wedding for a worthy cause. They visited the Gammadda Secretariat this afternoon. The newlyweds had very kindly decided to donate all the funds they received as wedding gifts to Gammadda today. Svenya Vijay Gunawardana, the daughter of Dr. Preeti Vijay Gunawardana and Mrs. Vijay Gunawardana, made the donation to Gammadda today.
A new beginning for the Galpote Gama School in remote Anuradhapura. Gammadda undertakes infrastructure development at this school for the future generations.
Gammadda, for the people, by the people.
The third phase of the Divi Savya program, supported by LOLC Holdings, continues in a bid to help the worst affected by the economic crisis in the country.
The third phase of the Divi Savya program, supported by LOLC Holdings, continued for its 7th day. Essential food packages were distributed to the poverty-stricken families in the Gampaha district. The Divisavya program identifies families that are facing serious issues economically and provides them with much-needed relief packages.
One of Sri Lanka's main cultural events, the Kandy Asala Perahera, concluded in the hill capital today. The epistle that is traditionally presented to the President was handed over by Diyavadna Nilame Nilanga Pradeep Dala to mark the end of the Perahera that is being held for the 1712th time.
The President presented awards and certificates to the performers at this year's Kandy Asala Perahera today.
This event is special because we held it after a long and hard time in the country. This festival is being held during a massive crisis in the country. The country is experiencing the biggest ever economic breakdown. This affects us all. We should end this. There might be even tougher times, and I believe that there will be tougher times. But we must overcome all of it. We need to console ourselves and move forward. My hope is to revive the economy of the country. Let's move forward and create a new economy. I request all the gods and the sacred tooth relic for their blessings so that by next year we will be able to overcome the crisis.
The final Randoli Perahera that took place yesterday marked the conclusion of the series of Perahera for the Asala festival in Kandy. The Indiraja Tusker led the final procession of the Randoli Perahera. The main Tusker was accompanied by Burumaraja and Mine Raja Tuskers. Thousands of local and international visitors gathered in Kandy to witness this cultural spectacle. President Ranil Wickremesinghe was also present to witness the Perahera. The water cutting ceremony that concludes the Perahera took place this morning.
That's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlotte Bendix for the Newsfirst team. Take care and God bless.